Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 14th of September, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So this will be the last refuel in a pre-merge world. We are less than 24 hours away from the merge. As you can see here, I put out this picture, dawn of the final day a few hours ago. It's finally time. Like, I am in disbelief still that it's actually this close. I think at time of recording, it's around 17 or 18 hours away. I get to skip 8 of those hours soon by sleeping through it, but I'm looking forward to waking up to a awesome merge day with a live stream that we're going to be doing with ETH Staker, Bankless, and myself. There's going to be everyone who's anyone really on there as part of the core dev and research community, and it's just going to be a really fun stream. I've seen the agenda. There's a lot there. There's a lot to go through, and I'm very much looking forward to it myself. And I think, it's going to be such a historic day for Ethereans. It's been such a long time coming. I've been talking about it for so long. I mean, I've been talking about the merge since I started this channel. Like, pretty much, I don't know if I talked about it on the first video, but pretty much most videos I would have talked about it or talked about something or to do with it. And it's just been such a long time coming. I remember I actually wrote a blog post in January of 2019 talking about the issuance reduction that was coming with the merge. And I was giving like a bull case for ETH when, January 2019, for anyone who was around back then, you know that giving the bull case for ETH at that time was very difficult to do. But here we are, over 3 years later, and it's just it's here, like we're on the eve, so to speak, of the merge. At least I'm on the eve. I know it's happening at it's funny. It's happening at like the best possible time for, I think, Australians, but like the worst time for Europeans, and definitely not an ideal time for people in the US either. Asia's fine, I believe. India and the Middle East definitely are fine and everything like that. But the US and Europe are kind of getting a little bit shafted by the timing right now, because I think the timing as it currently stands is, let me have a look here, 4:40 a.m. UTC, which isn't ideal, that's for sure, for those people, but ideal for me. So, but personally, I've waited 5.5 years for this. As you guys know, since like the day I got into Ethereum, one of the things I've been most excited about is that transition to proof of stake. Now, of course, proof of stake has already been live since December 1st, 2020, when the beacon chain went live, but it's not the same thing. All right, just having a separate chain running on its own as just literally a staking chain, that's cool. It's cool to see that live. It's cool to see it working for so long. But the end game is merging it into the main chain so that we can actually have transactions being processed and being validated and being kind of like blocks being proposed by the proof of stake network. So there is a bunch of things that are going to be happening, I guess, like post-merge that you should pay attention to. And Adrian Sutton has a good thread about this, basically immediately post-merge, what the core developers are going to be looking for. Now, I'll let you read this thread for yourself. Adrian Sutton is a core developer at Consensus, works on the Teku client. But essentially, I guess, number one thing that they're looking for, and what might take up to 20 minutes, is finalization of the chain. Now, finalization in an epoch, I should say, that's happened after the merge. So what I mean by this is that you guys know roughly every 6 minutes, it's like 6 point something minutes, where he's got the exact figures here. I think 6.4 minutes we justify the chain, and then 6.4 minutes later we finalize the chain. So roughly 12, 13 minutes. We finalize the chain, and that's when it can no longer be reorged back because finalization has kicked in. So essentially, that's what the core devs and researchers are going to be looking at to, I guess, signal a successful merge. Obviously, the merge can go through and we'll start producing blocks or slots, as they're called in the beacon chain, and it looks like it's gone well, but until that finality kicks in, I think, the devs and researchers aren't going to be celebrating. So if you see on the live stream, the merge happens, we all celebrate, and then we're just waiting for, 15, 20 minutes, don't be concerned, because that is totally normal. We want to wait for finalization before we say, okay, well, the merge has been super successful, everything's all well and good, and let's kick on here. And I've discussed the other things that could happen around the merge, such as some validators falling off due to configuration issues and maybe just some client bugs, they're all nothing burgers in my eyes. As long as we're still finalizing over, we only need 66% of the network at least to finalize, then everything in my eyes is fine, and the network will recover from any other issues that spring up around that. And the cool thing is like how much client diversity we have, especially on the consensus layer side. So even if one of the clients just totally doesn't work at all, we still have so many other clients to pick up the slack and we won't be suffering from a lack of finality as well. So very, very exciting times, guys. I mean, as I said, last refuel in a pre-merge world. We'll be seeing you all on the other side soon enough, but there is a bunch of other things to get through, so I want to get through those. I think there is a couple other things about the merge. So one here from Terrence, who shared the command center ready for the merge, which is an internal dashboard that they use to track everything going on the Beacon chain and through the merge. I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to check out. Haim is out with another Twitter thread today talking about Ethereum's roadmap. Now, a lot of people have asked me, what comes next after the merge? What are you excited about after the merge? Well, there is a whole roadmap after the merge that we are yet to execute on. As I discussed the other day, we're only roughly halfway through Ethereum's roadmap, and we could be adding more items to it as time goes on as well. So you can go check out this thread, but you've also seen Vitalik's flowchart roadmap before, so you probably have a rough idea of what's happening there. And obviously, immediately post-merge, well, not immediately, but like 6 to 12 months post-merge, we're going to be looking forward to the Shanghai update, which should have with it Beacon chain withdrawals and possibly the first version of proto-dank sharding. Or something similar to that in that vein, with a few other upgrades coming with it. But yeah, definitely go give this thread a read from Haim. I'll link it in the YouTube description. And lastly, on the merge topic, Cloudflare here has announced that they're announcing support for the Ethereum merge on the Ethereum network, and that their Ethereum gateways now support the Goerli and Sepolia test network. So it's very cool to see a big company like Cloudflare kind of signaling that they're supporting the Ethereum merge here. I just wanted to highlight that for anyone who may, potentially use their services in their kind of like day-to-day Ethereum goings. Now, before I move on from the merge stuff for today, I had to have something that I'm going to discuss at the end in relation to the merge. But before I move on from it, just want to say a good merging to everyone. I think that some of you have been in Ethereum longer than I have. Some of you have been in it shorter than I have. But I don't think it matters how long or short that you've been in Ethereum for. This is going to be a historic day for Ethereum. It's going to be a historic day for our community. It's going to be etched into the history books forever. This is something that you can tell your grandkids. Like, if Ethereum succeeds, right, and it succeeds far into the future, decades into the future, and we become the global settlement layer that we want to be, you can literally tell anyone who cares, I guess, that you were there on the day that Ethereum merged. Like, the biggest day in Ethereum's history. As I said before, I don't think there's going to be a bigger day than the Ethereum merge for Ethereum in terms of the upgrade potential, in terms of the attention that Ethereum is getting, in terms of what it's doing for ETH as an asset. Really, it is the merge, and you're here to experience it. So I think that alone is exciting enough, but then you have everything else that falls off of that, as I've discussed for years now at this point, so I'm not going to rehash myself. But yeah, I mean, I'll be on the live stream for the merge itself. Feel free to join the Daily Gwei Discord channel if you haven't yet. Go chat with people in there. I think some people will probably join the voice chat and things like that to discuss amongst themselves. You can, of course, watch the live stream as well, but it's going to be a super exciting time. I can't wait, honestly. I mean, as I said, 17 or 18 hours to go. I get to skip some of them with sleep, but still, I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve, that's for sure. I haven't felt this way about anything in a long time. But yeah, enough of that. Going to move on to some other important updates, and then I will discuss a bit more about the merge at the end here. So OFAC dropped some clarifications regarding Tornado Cash today, and Niraj from Coin Center has a summary of what these clarifications are. So the first one is people with trapped funds on Tornado Cash, aka people who had funds in there before Tornado Cash got sanctioned, can apply for a withdrawal. So basically you can apply to OFAC to withdraw those funds and get like an exemption from the rules. And obviously this only applies to US citizens, I believe. But this is a honeypot, guys. Like, this is a trap. By doing this, you're doxing yourself, you're doxing your Ethereum addresses, and if you were using Tornado Cash, you obviously want your privacy to be kept intact. Well, you're literally giving all that information to OFAC, to the US government, if you do this. Now, maybe it's worth it for you because you have a lot of money in there and you haven't withdrawn it because you don't want to be in the crosshairs of OFAC. Maybe it's up to you what you want to do with it, but I just think it really is a honeypot, really is a trap. So I mean, luckily I didn't have any money in there at time of the sanctions, but I mean, it wouldn't really matter for me anyway, since I'm not a US citizen. But still, like, that's not great in my eyes. I mean, cool that people can withdraw it without getting into trouble, but it's kind of like a roundabout way of doing it, where it's like you have to give up so much of your, I guess, privacy that you were trying to get in the first place to get your funds back, which I obviously don't think is nice. But the second point here is that they're aware of those dusting attacks that are happening, and they're not prioritizing enforcement against people for these dusting attacks, which I think is just they actually said this, prioritizing enforcement. I think that's a really, like, weird thing for them to say, because it's like, well, if they had the manpower or if they wanted to, they could go after these people. But it's like, okay, well, these people literally did nothing wrong. Like, they're not breaking the sanctions. And I think they understand that, but I guess like they don't want to give an inch, right? They just want to keep those restrictions up as hard as possible. But by not prioritizing enforcement, aka it means that you're most likely not going to get in trouble if you were dusted by Tornado Cash, of which I was, of course, but again, not a US citizen, so it's fine. And three, apparently you still have to report this in the Raj on the second point here. You still have to report these dusting attacks if you are a US citizen. So again, like a bit silly, but I mean, to protect yourself, probably worth it. And three, simply publishing Tornado Cash code is still allowed, which I think is a big one. And as Preston Van Loon outlines here, GitHub should unban Tornado Cash code since OFAC has stated US persons will not be prohibited by US sanctions regulations from copying the open source code and making it available online for others to view. So this is a pretty big deal, I think. It doesn't really change too much, but it's a big deal because it means that the US Treasury, they're trying to protect themselves a bit here, I think, with the way they've done these sanctions, where they're like, okay, well, you can still distribute the code because code is protected speech as per the kind of like case law in the US, but obviously, you know, running that or executing that falls afoul of the sanctions. So they are kind of doing this in a little bit of a sneaky way, but still good to see that US people can share this code, can pull it apart, can look at it, can do whatever they want with it without getting into trouble with sanctions, which I think is progress, so to speak. But still, these clarifications aren't really anything major. I mean, there's still the shitty sanctions. There's still Alexei Pertsev in the Netherlands is still under arrest. As I mentioned, they can hold him up to 120 days without charges. Really, like, I'm still kind of amazed that they can do that, but I mean, you know, I haven't even heard any news about it either, and that's just what they're doing. So it sucks, but we'll see what happens when it gets to that 120 days. And it still doesn't really give that much clarification around, you know, these sanctions and around like what they're going to do next with it, if they're going to be harsher about it, and things like that. So yeah, just some clarifications for you to kind of digest there. And Jake Chavinsky here as well put together a little thread on these OFAC clarifications, which was actually published as part of an FAQ on the website. I think there's a couple of other things here. No, there's literally 4 questions here, or 4 Q&As that you can go to. But yeah, he put together a little thread here that I highly recommend giving a read as well, since Jake is a lawyer, so he understands this on the legal side a bit more, has a bit more context around it. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I guess you can feel neutral about. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And it's better that they gave some clarification than no clarification. But still, it's... that first point especially really concerns me. You know, people with trapped funds can apply for a withdrawal. Just give all of your information over and tie your Ethereum addresses to this thing just so you can withdraw without getting in trouble for it. Well, I mean, the thing is that if you have trapped funds, you can just withdraw them to another address. And yes, technically that address will be dusted. But the thing is that they're saying in the second point that they're aware of these dusting attacks and not prioritizing enforcement, but only if you report it. But again, like it's kind of like unpoliceable, right? Like it'd be very hard to police. Not saying that you shouldn't report it if you're in the US or anything like that, but it's on you what you want to do. I think that, as I've said plenty of times, this whole thing is just a mess. It doesn't really make much sense to me, but there's some clarifications and some updates for you today. All right, so another big update today was that a South Korean court has issued an arrest warrant for Do Kwon. About damn time. I mean, I know people have different opinions about this, but like, I think that the reason why so many scammers and so much scams proliferate within crypto is because traditionally there hasn't been much enforcement against these people, right? So we've had some high-profile cases like the people who ran BitConnect getting arrested, people who do money laundering via exchanges like BTCE, for example, were arrested and that was shut down. Mark Capelli's from MT Gox went through the system as well, but there hasn't really been anything major in a little while, right? Whereas with this, I would consider to be a very, very big deal. And I mentioned when this whole thing was happening with Terra falling apart that South Korea takes financial crimes extremely seriously. And there's no surprise that they're finally going after Do Kwon with an arrest warrant now. Now, He is not in South Korea, I believe. I think he's in Dubai or Singapore, and I don't think they have extradition treaties with South Korea. But he's also had his passport cancelled, and he's also on Interpol's red list or red notice list or something. So really, he's stuck in that whatever country he's in. He wouldn't be able to move around, and at the end of the day, he's probably just going to have to surrender himself. Because like, what kind of life is that? Like, you're just stuck. You probably had like all your bank accounts frozen and things like that. And obviously, he's probably got like bank accounts in other jurisdictions. Maybe he's got some crypto, but still, like I feel like the only course of action for him at this stage is to turn himself in. Now, the reason, as I said, the reason I'm really happy about this is because I think actions like this actually will end up deterring people from doing like scams like this. Not that I consider Terra to be an outright scam. It's a bit of a murky subject because, look, I think what Do Kwon did was fraudulent. I don't think he started Terra as a scam, so to speak, but I think that he obviously lied about a lot of things, obviously misled a lot of people. He obviously had that ego of his that really made it much worse than it otherwise would have been, and he's directly responsible for losing people a lot of money, right? By creating Terra itself, and same with obviously having all those people in Terraform Labs working on it. There are some of those that I think have gotten arrest warrants put out for them as well. So it is fraud at the very least, and a bunch of other things that I'm sure they're charging him with. But I wouldn't call it a scam because we have to be very careful when we talk about scams in crypto because a lot of the actual scammers use that as a way to scapegoat because there are plenty of actual scammers, but then they'll sometimes amass an army of people who say, no, this isn't a scam because this isn't a scam or this isn't a scam or this, and this, when in reality it is. And you know, the funny thing is a lot of things are actually hard to spot as scams because, for example, there was ICOs run in 2017. They raised a lot of ETH, right? And then in order to, I guess, avoid regulators or avoid scrutiny, they pretended like they were building something. But in reality, it was a scam, right? And I actually think, and I've gone on the record about this before, I actually think EOS pretty much was a scam. They raised a shit ton of money. They pretended to put effort into building EOS out. They did get pursued by the SEC for securities, violations, which they paid a $24 million fine for, which was literally a slap on the wrist considering they raised over $4 billion. And no one has been prosecuted or gone to jail. The founders have basically moved on. EOS is obviously completely dead. So they made it out as if they were trying and doing something to just seem like not an outright scam. But I mean, it's pretty, in my eyes, like maybe not everyone as part of EOS was a scammer, but I think that from the get-go, it was definitely made with the intention of making a lot of money, banking in on the hype, and just selling worthless stuff to people. So I don't know, that fits the criteria for me of a scam. But there are also plenty of other examples out there. There are literally like outright scams which are not ambiguous at all, and those are the rug pulls that we see, where there's a lot of this in NFT land, where you literally issue an NFT, you make all these promises, you say, yeah, we're going to build this ecosystem, this community, blah, 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 and then you just run off with the money, delete your account, that's it, because you're an ANOR and it doesn't really matter, right? There's been some of those as well that have actually, maybe not a scam, but have turned out to be very borderline scammy, because you could go in it with the good intentions and then slowly realize that, wow, okay, this is actually not going to work. This is actually not going to be as big as I thought it was going to be. It's actually going to fail. And then you don't want to face the wrath of an angry community, so you just like nope out. So maybe you didn't start with the intention of scamming, but in the end, you pretty much became a borderline scammer because you just couldn't face the music. So there is a spectrum here. But when it comes to Do Kwon, I am extremely pleased to see that South Korean authorities are making a move to actually arrest him. I do believe this will deter people in the future. It's not going to deter everyone or even most people. It will deter some people. And I think that I hope that, not that I'm holding my breath for this, but I hope that the next time a bull market rolls around, there'll be at least some more caution or more people calling stuff like this out. But again, I'm not holding my breath about this because we all know how bull markets can get. But yeah, I mean, I'll update you guys when Do Kwon is actually arrested, I guess. But for now, it seems that there is a manhunt underway, because I don't know if anyone really knows where he is right now, but as far as I'm aware, he was in either Dubai or Singapore, the last I heard. So, as I said, they don't have extradition treaties with South Korea. It doesn't mean they can't extradite him, but it just depends what they want to do there. All right, so Blocknative is out with an update today, and they basically have released their own MEV boost relay called Dreamboat here. So this is going to be a fourth MEV boost relay that's available at time of the merge or just before the merge. I don't know if Manifold Labs' relay is available yet, but I do know obviously Flashbots is available, Bloxroute is available, and Dreamboat is now available as well. So this is open sourced and on GitHub for you to go check out too. You can go obviously check it out if you want to. And this is another relay you can choose from in a post-merge world, as if you have a solo validator or anything like that. Now, I don't know if it's actually listed anywhere here whether they're going to be running a censored relayer or not. So I'll have to dig a bit deeper into this to kind of like find out about that. But regardless, it's cool to see that there's more relays out there, more choice for people. I think that there's going to be plenty more, given that the relayer was open sourced by Flashbots and anyone can build their own. There is obviously massive profit opportunities for doing this as well. If you become a top relayer, you can take a cut, so to speak, and you can get a lot of activity through your relayer, but it is a specialized piece of software. It's not something that just anyone can run. It's not something that just anyone can run a service for, but Blocknative are definitely I guess like one of the better companies to run this, because of the fact that they are, as they describe themselves, masters of the mempool. They definitely, I mean, I'm an advisor to Blocknative, so I know this firsthand. They definitely have probably the best or one of the best insights into things like the Ethereum mempool and how Ethereum works at a very, very deep level. So, this might be one that I use. To be honest, like I want to use ones that don't censor. So as I said, I have to check on this. But I'm not going to use ones that censor, even if I think that they're going to be good and think they're going to be more profitable. I don't want to be participating in any censorship, because that obviously goes against the ideals of Ethereum and goes against my very core beliefs. But regardless, it's up to you who you want to use. As I said, you can use Flashbots, which is censoring, and by censoring I mean that they're censoring on the Tornado Cash sanctions only right now, where the addresses associated with the sanctions they're not going to process transactions for. And then Bloxroute has both a censoring relayer and a not censoring relayer. And then you have Manifold, which is just going to be doing a non-censoring relayer. And then Dreamboat, which I'm not 100% sure on what they're doing here. But regardless, as I said, you can choose from any of these if you want as a solo validator. All right, so there is a Uniswap governance proposal to deploy Uniswap v3 to zkSync today. Now, this is obvious. Uniswap should definitely be on zkSync, given that they're very close to obviously launching their mainnet, less than 2 months away now. And Uniswap's on so many other layer 2s at this point, it should be a no-brainer. So you can go give this a read. I just wanted to put this on your radar. You can go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but I don't expect anyone to kind of push back against this. It makes a lot of sense, and I can't wait to use V3 of Uniswap on zkSync once it's live. All right, just a kind of heads up, I'm doing a Twitter Spaces, or actually this is already finished by the time the refuel's gone out, because I'm doing this at midnight, and I put the refuel out at around 12:20 a.m. So I'll probably be in the middle of this when the refuel's gone out. But you can go watch the recording of this. It's going to be a Spaces I'm doing about the Ethereum merge with the block. So we're going to be talking all things the merge, just very, very close. I think this will be the last thing I do before the actual merge, besides the live stream. So yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, to end out today's episode, I have something that I want to discuss. And now, this is more of a broader Ethereum discussion. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible, but there is this tweet that antiprosynethesis put out on June 6th, 2021, and this is his pinned tweet on his profile, and I think it is one of the best tweets, or if not the best tweet, that describes both the crypto ecosystem as a whole and Ethereum as a kind of like ecosystem and as a thing, right? So the tweet is simple. Bitcoin is the idea, Ethereum is the execution. Very simple, but very impactful. And I truly agree and believe with this, because Bitcoin obviously is the idea. Bitcoin brought us blockchain technology. But over the years, it kept getting watered down. They didn't want to upgrade. The community became very hostile to upgrades. And then Ethereum was born in 2015, mid 2015, and went live. And Ethereum has executed on all of those early Bitcoin ideas from before Ethereum went live. And Bitcoin has just become more and more resistant to change, whereas Ethereum has become more and more open to change. And we're obviously about to go through the biggest change in Ethereum's life, right? And like, imagine doing something like the merge in Bitcoin. You couldn't. There is not enough, smart people in Bitcoin to make that happen, and there's not enough will from the community to make that happen. So that alone is a monumental achievement. But what this speaks to as well is that Ethereum is the execution, but it is also the idea. People often say, what is Ethereum? Is it the blockchain, right? Is it the community? Is it the apps on Ethereum? Is it ETH? I mean, it's everything, but what really is it? Like, it's all of those things, but what really is it at its core? Well, Ethereum is an idea, right? It's an idea of building something that can be a credibly neutral settlement layer for the world, which I've discussed before, so I'm not going to rehash it here. But that alone is incredibly powerful. You can build so many things off of that. It's like the internet, how the internet is a communication layer for data. And there's been so many amazing things built on the internet, and so many people have gotten value out of it. And it's transformed our lives in ways that the people who created the internet couldn't even imagine. The same is true for Ethereum, but Ethereum is the value settlement layer of the world. It's what we want it to be, essentially. So Ethereum, that is the idea of Ethereum, and that is Ethereum. Like, as long as that idea is held intact by the social layer, by the community, as long as we keep executing on the roadmap as part of Ethereum's tendency to execute on things, then Ethereum remains what we envision it, what the idea of Ethereum is far into the future. So how do we protect that? How do we keep it that way? Well, I've talked about this countless times. You have to have a really strong social layer. There is no point having just an idea if you can't execute on it, and there is no point having execution if you're executing on an idea that isn't really based on something sound. For example, there are plenty of other ecosystems out there that are executing on their own roadmaps, that are actually delivering things. But is it things that people actually want to use? Is it things that people actually are going to get value out of? Does it make sense? And I would say for most of the other layer ones out there, they shouldn't exist at all. They literally make absolutely no sense. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to fail, and they should never have been created in the first place. Just because someone had an idea to create a layer one in such a certain way, and potentially executed on that as well, doesn't mean that idea was good. So Ethereum, in my eyes, has the good idea, has the good execution, and has the social layer to back it all up. So Ethereum is not just one or many things. Ethereum is the idea, and that is the seed, that is the root that blossoms into everything else on top of it. And because Ethereum is more expressive, because Ethereum is open to change, Ethereum can be an infinite garden. It doesn't just have to be one tree in a garden. It can be anything, because Ethereum wants to be everything. It has a settlement layer that can build anything on top of it. It's like if you were to limit the internet to just email. That's what Bitcoin does. It limits itself to just BTC transfers. Yes, there's value in that, right? And that's what people want it to be, but it's so limiting. Like, the internet just being used for email would be so limiting. We wouldn't have all the amazing things we have, and it wouldn't have changed our lives really in any way, shape, or form. It would have made sending a letter more efficient, or communicating more efficient. But if we didn't have things like video on the internet, instant messaging, websites that allowed you to put information on there, online gaming, all these sorts of things, right? All these different use cases of the internet, then it would be a much more boring internet. So that's why Ethereum has always been the most exciting thing to me. It starts from that idea of an expressive, credibly neutral settlement layer for the world that you can build anything you want on it, and then it bloody executes on it, because that is just as important as the idea. So on the eve of the merge, on the eve of the biggest execution in Ethereum's life ever, I thought that was worth discussing. And as I said, this is one of my favorite tweets because of that. I always go back to, whenever I go to antiprosynethesis profile, I always see it there, and I'm like, yes, Ethereum is still executing on that idea that is sound. The moment Ethereum stops executing, and especially if it stops executing on that idea and on that settlement layer for the world idea, that is when I start to get bearish on Ethereum. But I'm not seeing that at all. I'm seeing that just improve over time, get stronger over time, and Ethereum's community become hardened and more emboldened over time to attempt even more cool stuff on the network. I mean, the merge obviously is the biggest and most complex upgrade in Ethereum's history, and it will be going forward, but it doesn't mean there aren't other big upgrades coming to the network, which I've discussed before plenty of times. And that's Ethereum executing on that original vision, that original idea. And Ethereum, for all intents and purposes, is a world computer. It doesn't matter if layer 1 can't process the same thing as like an AWS instance. Like, that's not the point. That's not what Ethereum layer 1 is meant to be. As I said, Ethereum layer 1 is meant to be that settlement layer for the world. And then we can have layer 2s building on top. We can have DeFi applications, DAOs, NFTs, every other use case you can think of, Web3, whatever it is, right? As long as we have that sound idea that we've built on, that we've executed on, we get Ethereum. And I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. I will see you all on the other side of the merge. Hopefully it goes well. I don't expect any issues personally. And I hope that you guys are going to watch the live stream as well. It's going to be a fun one. But I'll catch you on tomorrow's refuel, which will be in a post-merge world. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you in the post-merge world tomorrow. Thanks everyone.